Thank you. Okay, I had some odds as early as 218, 221. So far, it looks like they reduced the range here a little bit. They tried retesting 4-4. It looks like they stalled 4-3, but they're still holding 3-8. So I would say that this is for sure the best point in time to try coming back to these ranges here. Um, I think I might just take a break though, guys, and maybe just leave the screen on if you guys are okay with that. Like I can leave it on in silence or whatever, but I'd rather use most of my energy speaking during the last half hour versus like over the next hour. So I'm just looking to see if they can hold off 3-8, 3-6. Like I said, try retesting 4-4, 4-6 at least within the first half hour, like we discussed, because I think this would help odds. We don't necessarily have to clear the channel, like I said, right away, but if we can sustain first and then break this area here, I had some odds as early as 218, 221. This is going to help us in terms of getting, some better PA during the second half here and hopefully getting retest as we could technically test 5-8 during this hour. So I think a lot of it's going to be based on whether or not they can take out 4-4, 4-6, 4-8 within the first half, okay? Like I said, even if they only stall, test here, then come back, digest, and then come back later in the hour and break, that's also okay. We're not really required to do too much during this period. But if they clear the channel and if they do test 5-2, 5-8 during this hour, then odds of getting 6-6 and 7-1 heavily increase, okay? Okay, so I'll leave the screen on. I just turned it back on because this was the time of importance here. There it is, 69.44 being tested here, just ahead of that 221. The period between 218 and 221 had the earliest odds of a 69.44-45 retest. So this is really good for our conditions here. See if we can get a break, guys, of 4-6. Channel stops around 4-9, 4-8, but again, like I said, I don't think we have to technically clear the channel during the first half, but at least test 4-4, 4-5, 4-6. Okay, like these areas here. And ideally, we want to try holding above this area here during this period, okay? Okay, I'll leave the screen on and I'll be right back. Also, gold, kind of retesting our big area here at 4,648. Silver had a huge climb. XOM is getting a mass break. XOM on a much wider scale. We already know and talked about this, but XOM has been breaking off a 6-month range, an annual range, especially off the 12-month. You could also just look at this as, on XOM, I've always used this previous reduction, like this range in here on this bear flag, and I've kind of measured to see the range up. So these have always been like bigger price points that I've used on XOM in terms of like getting some bigger structural breaks, especially off like these ranges here. So right now they're kind of breaking off the median of this midpoint. So this is a really, really big area for XOM in my opinion, especially on the overall reduction or range breaks here. So two ways you can look at this is just the flag itself, which is 41, okay? And you can kind of see how, you see once they kind of cleared this area here, these are not exact ranges, but I'm just showing you how you can measure this. Do you see that? Like off this flag? And this is off the annual break, if you want to use this. Kind of like once they cleared 110, 111. And then these would be kind of like the secondary breaks right here. Hence there was a lot of overhead close to like here. Do you see that? And now we're kind of working with this range in here. So kind of close to like 89, 78 to like 131 or so, kind of where it's stalling right here. Do you see this? So this is just a very simplified way of looking at range on XOM and how you can incorporate this. It's extremely accurate. If you want, you can also just put a fib on this off the actual new 3-bar that formed. and it's pretty similar in range. Like, do you see this? Like 53.45, 59. Do you see that in terms of like the flag break? So they are very, very similar in range. And if you want, you can color coordinate it. So you can coordinate this range to be green, this to be red, so that you know the differentials, okay, and what you'd have to offset. Another way you could look at this is like, kind of like the structure breaks. You see this? So you see how there's alignment there too, even off the flag. So lots of overhead around 148, 149. That's what I'm targeting for XOM on a 131 break. 131 is huge. So this is definitely an area that could see some mass price movements. Another way you could look at this is simply just by either you could do like a retracement flag, like a fib extension on the downside. Okay, there's two ways you can look at this. Do you see this? And that should get you that 148 area. Do you see it? Kind of like right here, right? Or if you do it just on the downside flag, it should be pretty close to like this 133, 132 area, kind of like where they had this clearance break. Okay, and where they held like this 68% in range. On the fib, I would prefer using it off the actual new flag that formed, so like this right here. Do you see this? I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Do you see this? I'm just going to mark the 50% so it's easier for you guys to see. Hold on. This is kind of messy. But this is just a really good way of understanding this kind of structure break on XOM. Do you see that? Okay, so there's for sure going to be a lot of overhead near 129, 130. Okay, especially when you're looking at it from these midpoints. The bigger spots though are close to like 133, 134. Okay, once you start getting some structure breaks there, that's when you'll start getting a bigger flag break. So they're already breaking this 130 mark right now. So I would definitely look for some target breaks closer to like 134, 135. Another way you can look at this too is if you take half that range of like that 41.26, so like technically 20, 21 points, it should be the same thing. Do you see that? That would be like half the range or something. I don't really know how else to explain that, but off these areas here. So you'd basically be hitting half the cleared range. This is if you want to measure in increments versus using the fib, but this is the easiest way of understanding range on XOM. Okay? And basically this is what would net you these areas here. Okay, or like these areas here. Do you see it? So it would make sense that this would be like the first midpoint overhead. So I'm going to clear this up. I'll redo it later. Let me just save a copy of this. I've talked about this a lot in the past, but it's been a while, so it's just good to have. And gold is same thing. Gold is just basically breaking those intervals that we discussed of 294 points. So it's finally coming back and retesting this year. Also, gold, like we said, moves in like 9-bar ratios. Oops. So I haven't measured in a while, but I would imagine that the last time we had odds was right here. Okay, so if you want to start tracking and off of lows, we currently have some odds today. Do you see that? So manually do this on your charts. I'm just giving you guys some prep. I mentioned oil, gold, silver, materials, copper in the year-end report and weekly report, but if you've been missing these are huge trades. Like, they're definitely not trades that you'd want to be missing out on. FCX is also hitting our big ranges this week. 61.35 was my max for the week, but if that breaks, I would set some alerts on that. Because similar idea, that's the same thing as breaking this annual range, and that's what could come and bring it back to retest these highs. FCX is a little bit different in structure. This one's more, I think FCX, when we looked at it a few months ago, it was kind of like breaking off this 9-month. And I can't remember if it was a 6-month flag or 7-month flag that we looked at in the past. I'm trying to remember what it was. I'll have to go back and double check this one. It might have been actually it might have been a 3-month that started flagging up. But this is another one that you could easily track using like the same ranges that were used in the past. Okay, so this one's also getting super close. And this was a really clean structure break on FCX. And I mentioned this one earlier. I don't know if anyone took this trade this morning. It hadn't really moved much then. That was around here. I think I mentioned it around like 11:30, 12 o'clock. So kind of when it was just nesting in here. This was a really big spot for it to hold. So great move on. Okay, and then Poet, this was a stock that someone in the Discord had mentioned. We've just been analyzing and trading it. This one's getting a really nice structure break. And the big area and overhead on this is this 821, 822. So this one also made a really great day trade. And I still think this one can head to that $11, $12 mark on a wider structure break. So anyone that's swinging this, once it clears 822.23, this one could easily see a huge move as well. We didn't really talk too much about CLF, but CLF is also getting a really good structure break after holding that $10 spot. I'm still looking for 15 on CLF. We haven't really looked at individual names too much on a daily basis, but doesn't mean that you don't have to trade these. Like, these are some really big moves on a lot of these names. Silver is pretty straightforward. We talked about silver 2 weeks ago and last week, and we did mention that you could use like these similar type ranges on silver. It's kind of moving in like 34-point ratios, and I think we said the first major overhead is going to be right around here. So we're getting very close to that. Hey, Josh, if you're in silver, who was trading silver this morning? Because this would be the first measured overhead on silver. Okay, if someone wants to jot that down, kind of close to like 90, you could just say $93, $94. And this has been a really good structure break. I'm pretty sure we said silver had a 3-day flag and was also breaking off a 9-day, an 8-day, which has just been a nice continuation pattern. 10-day also continues, and final day on this is tomorrow. So I would say if silver can trigger 94 as early as tomorrow, this could have a massive structure break. Okay. I'm trying to remember where this initial flag started. I put it in the Discord I think it was the 18-day. Let me go back and double check. 4, okay, so we said 4-day was flagging a few weeks ago. Okay. And I think, oh, it was the 20-day, but okay. So 18 and 20-day on silver. And we said that we were targeting Can you guys see the screen? We said that we were targeting this 101, 97 areas. So there's definitely some overhead in between here around 93, 94 that we just looked at. Okay. But I might have to go back and find this other chart, but for sure some overhead here. And that's because I just kind of measured off this range here. But if you measure off the actual flag itself, which would be like off this 59 area, remember? There's some overhead around 96. So I'm just going to mark these because I don't have them marked from last time. I don't know how it got deleted because even that 101 got deleted. And then I think we said this would be like the bigger target areas, kind of like close to here. It could also be on a different template, but regardless, these are still 74 points. Okay. So this is probably half the range if this was 74 points. So maybe a little bit less than that. That's okay. We can still use these ranges here. Okay, so this is a few flips on silver coming up. We did say that 18-day runs until month end. That's what I had mentioned a few weeks ago, because they could basically keep silver going all the way till end of month. And okay, this is where that 37 range came from. That was like the annual range, if you guys remember. I know some of you guys are not in the Discord, but it was this. Okay, so these would be some really calculated spots here on silver. So there's so many different trades, guys, and so many different trade ideas. Like, take advantage of these. Okay. Especially when it's like commodities, because those things are primarily based off supply and demand. So if there's a heavy demand for these things, then why wouldn't you be trading it? Do you know what I mean? Especially if it's making like headline news. And we don't always get a big advantage like this. We haven't really had materials move like this in a while, so we could maybe look to see if this would trigger as early as, if we trigger 93.85, 96 as early as tomorrow, silver could hit $100 this week. Okay, so silver could easily hit 100 this week if 94 to 96 triggers tomorrow. Okay. ES kind of still consolidating here. So if we're stalling this 9.5 area. Okay, I'll check back closer to 3 o'clock. I'm gonna take a bit of a break. I can leave this on for you guys if you want. CVX looks like it's making its move too. I just want to keep XOM on screen too, since these are such huge areas. put these on Twitter too. Oh, there's a flip right here at 138. So far they're doing a decent job of holding over 363. Okay, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna put it on mute, but I'll keep the screen on. Okay, take advantage of these other trades. There is so many good trades. Okay, take advantage of these minerals, miners. Like there's so many good trades. Why would you not be trading silver, gold, oil, copper, like metals? Like there's so many good trades. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, perfect timing. I tried my best to get back by 3 o'clock. Oh, okay, so stalled for 850. That's pretty expected. Honestly, I wasn't really thinking that they'd clear the channel that hour. We'll probably have some stalls around 4849 like we talked about. And it looks like, where did they close here? 4-3. So same sort of idea here, not really progressive in terms of where they opened close. Same sort of open close that they had here at 2 o'clock. And they saved that 3-6 back test till the final minute here. So no 3-6 back test there before 3 o'clock, which was good. So I would imagine that 3 would have some volatility implied. There has to be news on that stick. Can someone check? 69.36 being back tested as soon as 3 o'clock hour opened, along with 69.49.50 retest, aka top of channel. So we can now extend our odds for post 3. You definitely have to clear the channel after 3 o'clock. So this is exactly what I drew before 3. That's actually crazy. So if you're looking back at this, this is exactly what we had drawn out as the mock scenario. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Because I unmuted myself. But I should probably double check that. Can you guys hear? Okay. So far, this is basically how it's played out. I don't know if you guys can see the center screen. So we drew this earlier, basically sustaining 3-6. And I figured that they'll probably clear channel after 3. So, okay, next 10 minutes are very, very, very important. Just to see where they clear and break. Okay, so it's Trump signed action allows to take 25% on sale of chips. That would for sure imply some volatility. They still opened in the channel though, and they still opened at that 4-3-4-4 spot. So there could easily still be volatility here. Remember, these areas are this area here would be the 173 points off 6-7, probably 6-8, 6-9. Okay. And you can see the immediate test of the channel here. I would say within the first 5 minutes, I want to see if they can clear the channel. Because that's what would allow us to have odds of not only a 5-8 break, but maybe 6-6, 6-8, 7-1, like we said. So let's see what kind of price action we could get here into the final hour of the day. So far, our plan worked exactly how we said, though. Like, this is actually very impressive. 2 o'clock, sustained 3-6, tested 4-6, 4-7, stalled 4-8, 4-9. 3 p.m. immediately tested 3-6, tested 4-9. So this is basically now testing both sides of the trade. You guys see this? Like, they tested 4-9 and they tested 3-6. You're not going to get progressive price action until one end breaks. Make sense? So right now the overhead is 4.950. Support is 3.536. Okay. First end that break should trigger at least a 7 to 8 point break. And we have some odds here at 05. There it is. There's that break. You should start seeing some really nice structure breaks here. Contract should rip. I picked up some out of the money calls too for today's expiration earlier, just because I figured that if market does break 5.8, 6.6, these could easily move. Like the 689 or 690 is kind of pushing it, but 689 calls, for instance. Look at that 305 stick break, guys. That's exactly, what did I say, a 6 to 7 point move? How many points did this move? 7.5, 8.5 points. That's insane. At exactly 305. And I said, if they're going to break, one end is going to break. So if they would have broken it down, they would have taken it to 2.8. Does that make sense? If they did the inverse on the downside. And 305 had the highest odds of getting some stick breaks here. I definitely don't see how we can't test 6.6 and 7-1 and get back to OR during this last hour. Really nice structure breaks here. We'll see if we can get make sure you guys cover some here, because these are definitely some big spots. Around 5.8. If they clear 5.8, this is a huge area for ES, because this is what can get us back to 7.1, 7.8. Okay. I tried my best to get back. Oh, that sucks, Mose. So first 5 minutes was really progressive, and now you're seeing the continuation sticks here. We'll see if we can get a 6-6 break. I would say before 3:30. That's what could put us at an odd of not only getting back to 7-1, 7-8, but maybe even getting back into the zone. That was like our final odd. And it was kind of based on how much range they would break or retrace. This is also the 33, 34 point break at that point in time off lows, FYI. We talked about this earlier, and I said that they could easily break 34 points, which takes us back to 69.58. How many of you guys caught this move off those lows? This is exactly what we talked about earlier this afternoon. This is a really, really calculated afternoon. Like, these breaks right here are basically ES meeting every single condition that we had to meet over these last 2 hours. So I think because we broke 44 or 22 points within that hour, that implies that they could definitely give us a 44 to 46 point break, like we discussed. So what I mean by that is, because they had broken, where's the 1 o'clock? Okay, because they had broken the 17 points here, I don't know if you guys can see that within that hour, that implied they could get a 34 point break. So this is where there'd be a lot of overhead. Are you guys with me? Pay close attention, because this is where it's going to get a little bit confusing. Okay. Okay, from the 12:59 to 1 o'clock period, okay? To 2 o'clock, so 59. You see how they broke 17 points there? Off these measured ranges, this is where they could imply mass overhead, like close to 6.1, 6.2. Okay, it's not the exact ranges. I know it's not right off the 1 o'clock lows, but if we were to measure that, it would be closer to here. Does that make sense? So that means that there would be some odds of getting there. Off the actual lows that were applied, this is the 34 point break right here. Okay, which was 5.7. So there's a lot of overhead between like 5.9, 6.1, 6.2, basically the means. So it makes sense. And then when I looked at this off the ratios that were broken between the lows and before 2 o'clock, you see how they stalled 22 points here? This is where it could be a little bit conflicted, but that's the only reason why we could maybe get a push to 6.6. Do you see it? Maybe stall like 6.5, 6.6. So And I talked about this earlier, but this is just so you guys have an idea. The range breaks before 3 were also very important, okay? Because they didn't quite give us the full range break here. And it was actually very similar range. So the prior lows when they broke here, remember how they stalled 30 points? And then even back here when they broke, they kind of stalled 33 points. So this was the first time they actually broke a 34-point ratio. Whereas off lows to here, before 3, they hit 25 points, which is why you could get those. Remember how I said core areas would be like 50, 51, 52. Do you see what I'm saying? This is how you could maybe see those breaks back to today's open. Today's opening range was 69.72.50. And a lot of it, though, is going to depend on how they react in these areas here. And if you just measure straight up, this right now is probably just very close to like a 40. If we hit 44 points. This is the same as that 21.25 times 2, but if we hit like 44-point ratios here, it would be aligned back to like 6.7, 6.8. So there's a lot of overhead between 5.7, 5.9, 6.1, 6.5. With max ranges, I think, being close to 6.7 and 7.4, which would take us back to OR. Do you guys agree? And then if we look off, like, maybe, like, the first stick break when they actually broke here, this is the only way that they could come back and retest real-time highs. Okay, and that'd be, like, closer to, like, these ranges in here, right? Or off, like, the initial stick break off lows, which is probably going to be very close to like this 8.1, 8.2 area here. I feel like they're not going to do that in real time today unless there's news, but that would be the reason why if they did. Okay, so nonetheless, this was a really informative session, I think, and a really good one to go back and study and review, especially on these structure breaks. I'm going to just mark that 5.925 since there's some overhead there. And what were those other areas that we just looked at? 6.150. 6.150. Okay. So conditions here, since they did open at 4.3, probably still have some volatility because this hour still opened in the channel. So we'll see if they can hold these ratios. They definitely have to try taking out these areas here. So you could basically see like price action that's like in between channel and means during this hour or this first half, and then maybe some pressure into the last half hour of the day. Does that make sense? Like in terms of if they wanted to get us these max core ratios by end of session or something like that. But I do think that there could be some volatility here into the close. These would probably be the max ranges if they want to get us there. I think all we have to pin today is 5.8, to be honest with you. They don't really owe us much more above here, so technically speaking, they don't really have to do anything over the next hour, but if they really want to keep odds in play of getting back to 70, 20s, and 30s by end of week, I do think that they would have to try getting back to 6.9, 6.6, 7.1, and so on. Does that make sense? So we'll see if they can hold 69.38 to 42 over this next half hour, and whether or not they can come back and try retracting or retracing that range break. Okay, I'm gonna make an iced coffee then. Well, we just kind of sit and see what happens here with PA. Silver looks like it's about to get that break of 93. I'm just gonna set an alert here at 93.64. CVX had a bit of a downturn. Oil got hit with that news. Nice snack. Okay. Did you guys make sure to cover some here when I said to? Like off 5.7, 5.8? Like this is definitely the first cover area. I took some off there because that's not an area that you want to be getting greedy at, just in case, okay? Because at this point now, if they want to give us 6.671, we're just at that point lucky, okay? They definitely don't owe us above this 5.8, 5.9, 6.1 area if they don't want to. They could easily keep this pinnable between these ranges here and split this up into 2 more sessions if they wanted to, like to make tomorrow a means to core type of day, and then maybe make Friday like a day of getting back into the zone. Does that make sense? Whereas if they bring this back to core areas as early as today, then tomorrow could be a day where like they could take it back to the zone and we could end the week in the channel. That means that we could still have an odd breaking weekly highs and getting 70.38, 70.41, 70.50, whatever. Okay. And that would make sense on a hold of 69.20s because a core to core break could easily still be 70.50. Okay. And that would be the same thing as us hitting 128, 129 points. So 69.20s holding today. Okay, 69.78.81 retracing as early as today is what could give us a break to 70.50 this week, right? If they keep it closer to the channel, like 4.4, 4.8, and maybe close to 5.2, 5.8, probably not. We're probably constricted closer to like 6.999, maybe 70.20. Like it could just be stuck around those areas. If they keep it closer to the channel ranges and don't retract the zone as early as tomorrow, then this will probably just end up being a flat week where they could just take it right back to that weekly open. Does that make sense? And we have a lot of headline news that could easily move price. So, okay, I'm going to put myself on mute and I'll be back try to be back before 3:30 because I do want to see how things react around then. Okay, hi everyone. Okay, let's make this afternoon a little bit more fun. What do you guys think is going to be our max range for the last half? Let's do a poll. Can you guys also make sure to resub, just because the Amazon subs drop off every month and I haven't been actively streaming for like the last 2 to 3 weeks. I think this is only like my second or third stream in like the last 2 weeks since the new year. So I think a lot of the subs fell off for like subscribers on here. Okay, max range for real-time session. 69. I'm just going to make this pretty simple. Okay, 69, 61, 69, 64, 69, 65 to 69, 66. How many think that they'll get? 69, 68, 69, 71, 69, 71, 69, 74.50, 69, 76 plus. Okay, I'll set that for 5 minutes. And let me know what you guys think. I'm going to vote too, but I'm not going to tell you guys what I'm voting for. Let's try getting at least 20 votes, guys. Come on, if there's 20 people watching, at least 20 votes. It's good to see what majority think too. So I would say we have odds of getting 6671 if they can do a good job of holding this 4445 area, which so far they have been. Okay, so far 4445 has been holding. But I think the next condition would be that we have to try testing this area or retesting it here during the 130 to 136 period. So let's see. If they can clear this area here, like all the way through 6.5 as early as 136, I think we have odds of 7881, okay? But for now, we're just kind of looking to see if they can retest this range in here. Obviously, news can play a huge factor. Did this session help you guys trade this afternoon? This definitely wasn't the easiest type of trade, okay? Because there was a lot of conditions that had to be set, and it's not like we had the best range, but these are kind of the things that have to happen in order to maybe get like a nice progressive close, which usually requires patience. But Vincey, do you see why we didn't really have to sweep the channel, but just at least digest it during that 2 o'clock period, right? At least above 3.6, so that it gives us at least odds of maybe getting 5.866. You didn't have to necessarily sweeping it. Sweeping it would have given you an odd of getting back to the zone. That would have given you an odd of maybe getting 6.988. Because then you'd be testing, if you swept the channel, you would have been testing core ranges, or like 5.866 as early as like 2.30, right? Which leaves a lot of time and room to maybe get a 7.881, 8.5, 8.8 break. So digestion of channel between 2 and 3 o'clock was, I think, all that was required. But the 3 p.m. period, especially the first half of 3, crucial that they break 5.8 to even have a slight probability of getting 6.6, 6.8. Okay. So let's see what they do here. If they can break this 6.1 area, I think by like, I don't know, probably like 3.32, there's a pretty decent shot that they can try testing 6.5, 6.6 as early as this half here. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to start setting some alerts, you guys. I voted for, I'll tell you guys what I voted for once the poll's over, so you guys don't cheat. Oh, I almost gave you guys the answer by accident by typing it. you don't have to do that, Sports Luck. You are subbed on Prime. It says. Doesn't that blue crown mean Prime? Oh. 6 months. I think if you do it monthly and then just keep resubscribing, then it won't charge you anything. But then you have to do it every month, I think. Oh. Like it means you have a Prime account, but oh yeah, I see yours says 4-month subscriber, 13-month subscriber. There it is, 6-1 being tested here right at 332. Perfect timing. You guys, we really have an odd of getting there. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys what I voted for. I voted for 6974. I feel like they have a pretty decent odd of getting us back to OR today. And depending on how early and if they can test 6566, then there could be a tiny, tiny probability that we could actually get back to 78, 81, 88. But I'm just going to not fetch too high just yet because obviously we have some work to do. But so far, this price action has been very constructive. So if PA is constructive, then who are we to say that it won't do it? You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens here. You should have made really good money this afternoon, guys. These are really good breaks on these trades. There's no reason not to be profiting off this, to be honest with you. 69.66 being tested here ahead of 336. This is putting really high odds in play of getting back to OR and potentially the zone. A lot of this is going to be relative to how they react around 6.6 and 6.7. I think 6.7 is a bit more calculated though, so we'll see. So I would say that like the 3.4, 3.5 period's the earliest point in time that they could clear 6.6, 6.7. It's crazy too because these contracts went back to almost 70 cents from being like worthless. That's crazy. Well, initially I had the 687s, but I ended up buying the 689s and 690s. The 690s though I bought when I got back to my desk, like off that 6.94648 hold. The 689s though is what paid really well. Oh, you did SPX? Nice. I didn't do SPX today, although I probably could have done SPX. Right. This is the moment of truth, guys. If they can clear 6.6 as early as like 336, 338, then there's some pretty good odds here that we're going to get maybe back to the zone today. That means 69.88 could be in play. 6965.25 being tested here ahead of 336. 336 had the highest odd of getting a 6.6 test or break. This is what would give us odds of not only getting back to OR, but maybe even getting back to the 8.1, 8.5, 8.8 area. So let's see what they do here. I set some alerts at 6.6. This could be your second cover, but I would honestly wait. Give it like a minute or two. I wouldn't cover just yet. See if they can take out 6668, because if they do, then they could snap or. And I don't want you guys to cover too early, so just give it like 1 or 2 minutes. Okay? $69.66 being broken at exactly 336. This is perfect PA, guys. There's a high probability they're going to get this back to 69.88 based on these structure breaks. 6968 being tested. And again, these are the 44-point breaks here right at 3:36 p.m. If you guys want to cover on that stick, you can go ahead. If you want to wait till 3:38 to see if they can take out 668 and test 7-1 as early as this period, then you can. Probably not if you didn't cover anything at all yet, though, this isn't a bad area to take at least half off. Okay? So because they held core areas, that's the reason why we could get like 50, 55 point moves. But a lot of this is going to be relative to the kind of price action we get here. If they end up stalling 66, 68, and then bring this back down to like, let's say 57, 58, this is where they could make it kind of constricted into the close, where they might limit range. If they immediately retrace this back, so let's say they retrace it right back up, okay, this is how you can have that continuation break on the session today. Let's just measure this reduction stick here. So 5.25 points would have taken us back to 72. What's today's opening range, guys? So these areas are aligned with 72.72 and 72.75. Today's real-time open was 6972.25. Let me just. Do you see how these areas are aligned with that? That means that they could have continued it right to OR. That's exactly how they could rip it back to OR. So that reduction is aligned with OR. We'll see if they try to negate before the final 15. Could end flat. What do you mean? Like back to OR? Well, we ideally want it back to core ranges, so that would be the best case scenario. But if they get it back to the zone as early as today, then we can retest 70.28, 70.32, okay? And that means that we would still have odds of getting 70.38 retest this week and 70.41, and our weekly ranges would still be in play. Do you guys want a midweek report today or tomorrow? Since the Sunday one was issued late. And by the way, it's because my niece caught that that hand, foot, and mouth disease from daycare. So we just had to, and everyone was at my house on on Sunday for my sister's birthday, and all the kids were here. So we have to sanitize everything, and I just have to make sure that, like, hopefully the kids don't catch it. I know it's so contagious, and of course it's like the worst timing. Like everyone was here on Sunday, and she didn't show any symptoms until Monday. So it was like, or like Sunday night or something like that. Like, or sorry, Saturday. So my sister's birthday was Saturday, and then Sunday is when she started showing those symptoms. And then Monday she completely broke out in like a rash, and she's the 2-year-old, so she's the youngest of all the kids. And all the kids were here, so I hope they don't end up catching it. Yeah. You see how they're immediately trying to negate here? I just marked these areas, guys, because these were the reduction sticks. So, and they're aligned with OR, so that's pretty insane that this reduction at like 336 had this closed above 6.8, do you see how this would have immediately snapped OR? Like how I was saying, like this could have immediately snapped OR. That would have been the stick. So that's pretty impressive. We'll see what they do before the 15 minutes here. I think this is going to be a very interesting close. And this is a really good session to go back and rewatch. I might even rewatch some of it myself because there was such specific conditions for today. I am keeping a mind, like an open mind though, that they did open in the channel, okay? So the only reason why it might be okay is because they immediately held 3.6. They might have negated that volatility early in the first hour, in the first part of the hour, sorry. And 4.3 is still off the 71 ratios, so like the 173 point ratios. If it was maybe an open closer to like 3.6, 3.8, I would have been a little bit more concerned. I don't think they'll keep us out of 70s. It just could delay it because if they want to pin the close. Oh. Well, these reduction sticks were linked to the opening range, so we'll see. I do think that they have to hold 5.7, 5.8 though. That's still a condition here, so we'll see if they can hold the line here before 4.5. Otherwise, it kind of puts that risk back on of like 5.2, 5.4. And that's why I was saying you could definitely cover some off that 6.6, 6.7. These are really calculated areas. Those were the 30, those were the 44 point ranges too on ES. So far 7.75 points down. And that's around that 7.4 area, 7.5 that we talked about. That's what I voted for, so I think even these ranges being reduced there, that gives it a pretty good probability that that could very well be where they cap range, but we'll see. I'm not always right. Like there's sometimes where I could be off by a little bit, but I've tried my best to measure today as precisely as possible. So I would say that conditions though for these to still have an odd and to close, they definitely would have to hold this area here before 345. If it's tested after 345, I don't really care. Like if they, let's say they took it back to like 4.4, 4.8, but if they do this ahead of 345, that's where risk can really increase. Ideally, you'd want to hold this area here before then. To give you time to basically retrace back over 5.8, 6.1 into the close. Okay, what do you guys think? Where do you think they're going to pin the close today? This is a pretty fair game now. They left a tiny bit of room on upside, and they left a tiny bit of room on downside. And it's crazy because these ratios are the exact ratios that they kind of left on downside. Okay, so like same sort of range, 2 to 3 points on each end. How many think they still have a chance at triggering the 70s? How many think they're going to make this pinnable between 5.8, 5.4, 6.4, 6.6? Even the 4.3, 4.4 area is pinnable, so this could easily be a spot that they could pin it into. There's that 5.2, 5.4 retest there at 45. So like I was saying before, they could only have odds if they test this area like closer to this point in time here. You wouldn't want to test it too late because then you're not going to have enough time to retract back range or like retrace. So far, overall reduction during this period has been close to almost 17 points. So that's a pretty huge decrease. This is where they took away odds of getting breaks to like 8-1, 8-3, okay, 8-8. Do you see what I'm saying? Look at this measured off that opening range of 7-2. Do you see that? So 16 points reduced. So I would say odds of 8-1, 8-3, 8-4, 8-8 are probably off the table. There's still some probability that they can trigger back to OR, with the exception that they sustain at 345. So I don't mind if they backtest 5-2, 5-4, but probably not after 345, because you want to try testing here and then sustaining so that you have enough time to retrace. So what that means is you want to have enough time to at least try getting back, you know, over these areas here, especially before 350, so that you have some odds of, you know, retesting these ranges here the last 10 minutes. Okay, what do you guys think? Give me some pins. Give me your guess for 3:59 p.m. Silver is also getting super close to triggering that mark. What do you guys think? And it doesn't matter if there's like right or wrong answers. It's just to get a better idea. Of what the majority here think. They're being very tricky about this too, because they basically broke over 4-4, okay, like 3-6, 6-9, 4-4, but and then they also broke 6-9, 6-6, so above 6-5, 5-8, meaning they left, like, if you're looking at this from a channel perspective, okay, you see how like they left like a few points here? Do you see this? They basically left, they broke a few points above. Okay, this is off the channel to the means. The means usually ends around 6-4, 6-5. And they left a few points above, like beneath that, that 6-8, 6-9, 7-1. Off the 2-8 range, which is also pretty calculated. If they really want to be specific about this, it's kind of closer to that 7-4 or that 7-2. So they've kind of left it open for both ends of the trade. I would say that the 348 stick's definitely not a good stick in terms of allowing odds for like extended range, because that would be a very important time to try to retrace. So far it's trying to sustain. That just puts a lot more pressure though for 350 to do what? What would you have to do at 350? And specifically probably within like the first 30 seconds. Yeah, you need to break that 5-7, 5-8. I think it's more than 5-7, isn't it? 5-7-2-5. That's the 34 point range. Okay, so let's see. Let's watch this. See if they can clear here off that 30-second mark. Here's the 30 seconds. Okay. It definitely has to close over that though. Let's see. Otherwise, I would say that there could easily be some volatility still. They did test it, which is okay, but you need to see some continuation sticks and some holds over like 554. So 69.58, 69.59, pretty big spot for this to clear here into the close, especially, you know, post 350. Because that's going to apply a lot of pressure for the 354 to 55 period. Okay, they did sustain 4.9 though, so that's good. They did test 5.7, so that's good. What's your condition for 51? What did we just say? If they're not going to close above there, I would definitely think that they have to try their best to at least try getting a close around these price points here. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit volatile, I think, into the close. Ideally before 54, because if you're still stuck beneath 5.8 by 5.4, then you have those odds of getting back to these ranges here into the close, okay? This looks pretty pinnable though, in my opinion. Like, this definitely looks like they're making this very pinned into the close. $52 doesn't give any confluence though, and 52 is volatile. 52 is what would have had to have broken for us to have triggered those 20s in the first place. So closing near 5.2 keeps odds in play of us coming back to 69.20s. That's not high enough. But yeah, in that kind of way, yes, I agree. But so far, this is still constructive, like 3.6, 4.4, 4.9. Do you know what I'm saying? This is still pretty constructive. They just have to try clearing 5.8, preferably by that 5.4, 5.5. And like I said, this is durational till the close, so if they want to do it right into end of day, they can. If they were going to do something like that, though, they really have to close above 5.8 by this 5.4 mark. I don't think that they can afford to close beneath that at that point in time. How much time is left on this candle? Oh, they're trying. Do you guys see this? Look at how hard they're trying. Do you see that? Look at the 5.4 candle, guys. 69.58 opening, closing break here. Final seconds. They even gapped those last 5 seconds. So this could definitely still keep those odds in play. So that's exactly what we were talking about. Bringing it back to here. I do think that they have to test 6.1 though. At least by 5.5. We'll watch the 30-second turnaround here. Because if they're able to get this back to at least here, then there could be some odds of retesting these highs into the close. We'll see. I'm gonna keep my answer as is, because we still tested 6.6, 6.8 at 336. We still sustained 4.9. We still didn't break down 5.2 before or after, sorry. 345. They still brought this back to 69.58 at 54. They still tested 5.725 at 350. So I don't see any condition that hasn't been met. And here's the 355 stick. The only way that they could expand this is if 355 tests as high as 6.5, 6.6 here, but I didn't think it could do that. But again, I could be wrong. Thanks, Smalls. No, I think they're saving this for final, like, minute. But we'll see. All that was really needed for 55 is 6.150, but like if they want to keep this pinnable. but you'd have to see like that continuation. So then your 5-8 stick has to be above 6-6. That would be my final conditions into the close. I never eat when I'm trading, so I feel so sick right now. Like, I feel so sick. Okay, you guys have one last shot to give me your pin into the close. I'm leaving my answer the way I voted. I voted for that 7-2 to 7-4 area, which I could obviously be wrong, but we'll see. What do you guys think? This is if they want to make it flat into the close. I do think that they have to take out 6-6 though by 5-8 in order for that to even be a probability. My max range for a real-time session was the 7-4, 7-5 area, but we'll see. What time is it? 57. We're pretty close. So I think if we can get there, we could try getting this break. Let's see. What time is it? 10 seconds to go. 6-9, 6-5, 7-5 being tested ahead of 358. My thoughts were if they're going to do this, I do think they have to at least test 6-6, 6-7 off the 5-8 stick. Otherwise, that would make it a little bit hard to clear. We're so close. The extremely calculated range was close to like 51 to 52 points off lows. That would be a quarter core move. No breaks up 6-6 here. So it could be a little bit tough for us to get this last minute break, but we'll see. They might even do it after the bell too, if they wanted to just be. We'll see if they break in the first 30 seconds. Buy more stocks. I like watching the last minute in these second intervals. Let's see. I don't think the odds are that high in real time because they didn't take out 6-6 before 5-9. But if they can do it within like the first I would say the first like 45 seconds maybe they could, but that's going to be kind of tough. Probably more likely around that 4 p.m. mark, but we'll see. They definitely stalled and reduced range a little bit. Probably do it right at 4. There it is, 6-8. There it is. 69, 70.25. They'll probably get that structure break of 7-2, probably like right at 4. And I would say that that made total sense because they never took this above 6-6 by 5-8. And like I said, I think that had to be a condition for that to have broken. So probably close to like a 3-point reduction here into the close, which makes sense. Nonetheless, this was extremely accurate PA and really, really good structure breaks on ES into session close today. I'm going to stick around for the first 5 minutes. I just want to see how they trade this. 7-1 makes sense though because they never took out 6-6 by 5-8. That had to be a condition. Like if they would have closed this above 6-6 here and took it out, then I definitely could have seen them taking it to 7-2, 7-3. into close. Let's see where they take this up the last 5 minutes. How did you guys do today? I think that brings SPY to 690. Yeah, just more for like after hours. I feel like they, for real time, odds were gone after not taking over 6668 before 359. But this could also be because they brought it down to 50 versus holding closer to like 5254 in terms of those reductions in range. That was another thought that I had back here. Like, I feel like if they would have held closer to like 54, you know, this could have easily been like a higher odd. Do you see what I'm saying? Like closer to these areas here. Because this was the more ideal area to hold, closer to like 5.8, 5.4. And I would say that these areas are still going to be like the max ranges probably for the session today. We'll see where they end up closing the actual session. Still a really good day, and we got over 50 points in range. Any questions, guys, before I sign off, or are you guys good to go on your end? Okay, this is a good session to review, guys. Go ahead and review this after the bell. These little tiny 5-point reductions, 5.5 points back in here, back down here. I think these were all the reason why we got a little bit less in real time, but this is still some really good range. We're back to core areas, which means 70-20s could still be in play for the week. It's the same conditions as before. So remember how we said last time we needed closes over 69, 66, 68, 71, whatever, to have odds of getting the 70-20s. It's the same exact thing. So we're kind of starting over once again. Same sort of scenario for them to give us the odds of getting that 7K retest and the breaks of 70, 20, 28 to 32 would require at least a pin right here. This could also easily be a nice, not star reversal, but what time frame was it? Oh, like this 3-day. Could be like a nice negation candle. And I think was it the 8-day? This is what could keep us a little bit stuck, but we have some odds on Friday. So if tomorrow ends up being a bit of a tighter bound day, that's fine. Like basically between core areas in the zone, like so between here and here, maybe here, that's okay. It would give us odds of still getting like the 70-20s, 70-32 by Friday. If they want to keep this flat into end of week 2, that's also fine. Like basically make it to back to weekly OR, just like how they brought this back to daily OR. Okay, I'm gonna sign off and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you. Pray that I don't catch that.